Hello and welcome to this big clipper video, and this one means a lot to me. Just to be clear on this, I'm going to publish this on the 5th anniversary of my father's passing. I miss him very much on every day, yeah, so this is a build which is in memory of my father. The inspiration or the impetus for this was the TCU challenge, and the theme was memories. And it was just obvious to me immediately what I had to do. So what I've built is a diorama which will eventually go onto one of my model railways of my father walking along a ridge. He absolutely loved walking. I used to walk with him a lot when I was younger, and ridge walking in particular was the favourite thing that we did. And so this is my father walking along a ridge, and it's as simple as that. And I'm very pleased with how it came out. It was a lot of fun to build and means a lot to me, like I've said. I deliberately left it unfinished because I will be cutting it out and then placing it into more of a scenery, and that made it a bit easier for me rather than trying to do a whole finished thing and then trying to bed that into scenery. It made sense to me to leave it a little bit unfinished. So yeah, that's why I made that choice. And I'm actually going to be publishing this before this challenge is even due to finish. So yeah, I have no idea who won. I don't really care. I wanted to build this and I'm happy with the outcome. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Really appreciate you watching this video. Means a lot to me, and I will see you again at the end. So the theme is memories, and if people didn't know, this challenge, which runs up until the end of February, does run over, sadly, the anniversary of my father's death, which is a huge moment in my life. It was less than 2 weeks after my daughter was born, and it was a pretty horrendous period of time. So yeah, so the theme that I'm going to do is going to be very close to me. I'm going to do this as something for the model railway, which is cool. Me and my dad did a lot of hiking and walking together, lots and lots of it, and so I've planned this for a while. I actually meant to put this on. I thought about putting this on to Rosie's railway, but it didn't really work out as something I wanted to do at the time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a very small diorama which will eventually get seated into the layout in a prominent place probably, which will be 2 elements, maybe 2 elements, maybe 1. We'll see how it goes through the week, through the months. So the first thing, I've had these for a while, so the first thing is the Wooden Scenics camping set. So we've got a tent, we've got some kids, we've got a dad, we've got a fire, we've got some what have you. So what I might do is a bit of a campsite. But the first thing that I'm going to do is going to be very simple, but it's going to mean a lot to me. I'm going to make a hill, and this hill is not going to be completely finished because it's going to be left so that it can be bedded in to the layout. But also that will have meaning to me as well, which I might go into later, but I'm not sure. So it's going to be, I'm going to have a hunk of foam, which I will shape. I will leave some of it undone, and I will have a hunk of foam, which will have a hill and a path leading up the hill, and I'm going to have that miniature there climbing the path, and that's going to be my dad. And we did walking together, like I said, and after I grew out of it a bit, which now obviously I regret, but you know, when you're a young kid you think your dad's going to be around forever, but after I stopped wanting to do long distance hikes, he carried on his own, which just shows his character, and he did quite a few UK based long distance hikes on his own and loved that. So yeah, so that's going to be the first thing I'm going to do. So depending on how it goes, I might come back and do the campers as part of this. If not, that will just stay in my stash and will eventually appear. But this is basically my special thing that I'm going to use, and I'm going to get the foam and start carving and designing and building this, basically hiking up towards a ridge, because that's what we used to love doing. So this is going to be part of the model railway eventually, but for now, to the theme of memories, I'm making this for my dad. So here we have the base that I'm going to use to start this, and I'm going to build it up using lots of this style of XPS. It's very strong, very sturdy, and that's what I want to use. So as I've said, I'm going to do it with a bit of an unfinished so that I can then carve it and blend it into whatever part of the layout it's going to go on. So the first thing I need to do is basically work out roughly the size, and this is going to be, here's the miniature that the figure that represents my father, my dad. So what it's going to be is going to be a cliff on one side, or a steep slope on one side, a steep slope on the other, and then a rising hill going up. So if I think, if I do this in kind of almost in contours, I'll probably leave an area here so I can trim it in and bed it in like I've said. So if I drew around roughly like this as being the largest part of this, and it might be that I want to do that a little bit more squared off, and then get another sheet. So I'm going to keep this on there. I might trim around it a bit, but as I said, I want it to be obvious that this is a still in progress piece. And then if we look at, so we're going to have the path, can have a path kind of running along the top of the ridge like this, and my dad will be walking along that path, and then we're going to want to have the contour lines on this side are going to want to be relatively close together, and this is just rough, just to give me an idea. Probably want to join those a little more like this, so it'll be quite nice and tall, and then maybe a bit of a flatter area and what have you. So what I'll be doing, I'll take this idea and so that's going to be the path. Let's just make sure I know that's the path by doing a scribbled line on it. Yeah, so once I've got roughly an idea of how I want to do this, I might do a little bit of a kind of ridge here, maybe some stones or rocks or whatever. Once I've got an idea of this, what I'll do is I'll roughly translate that across onto these sheets and start building it up, gluing it in place, and then I will do the smoothing with modelling compound. So I'm not going to try and carve these, I'm literally going to make this as a contour model, and then maybe a bit of carving, but mostly what I'll do is I'll do modelling compound, put some stones in it and rocks, and then paint it up. So yeah, I'm going to crack on with that. I will bring you back once I've finished doing this here, and when I've started on doing some of these, some of the cutting, and yeah, I'll show what it looks like at each stage. But for now, let's get a little bit of a plan going. I've made some good progress on this. Changed my mind a little bit about making it wider. Just thought I'd go for a slightly more ridge-like look, and it's not going to be very steep at the front from how I've done it, but I'm pretty pleased with how it's going to look. It'll be steep enough, and what I might do is make it a bit steeper at the top. So basically it's just chunks of this that I've cut out, all different like lengths and what have you, and you can see on the bottom one I've added a little bit to one side. So what I'm going to do now is get my grabby glue and just start gluing that down. So let me just grab that. So here we are, this is the grabby glue, moment fix power. And what I'm going to do is I'll glue a few on camera, do the rest off camera, and then show you how I'm going to finish the last bit just with how I've been working. So I'm not going to look to glue it all over because I don't need to, because I will be putting on, as I've said, some modelling compound, and that will act a lot to secure it in place. So just a little smear of glue like this also means that I can still carve and cut if I want to. I won't get in the way. So stick those down, and then a little bit of glue in the middle and a little bit on the bottom, and that will be sufficient. So I will glue this Lasagne, one of my favourite meals at Lasagne. I will glue this these all down, and
come back in a couple of minutes to do the final bits, because I figured it might be interesting to show exactly how I'm working it out and doing it. I'm not too worried if it's not perfect, because, as I say, I will be putting the modelling compound and doing a whole load of texture on it and terrain. But yeah, we're just gonna kind of get that down. Get that down. I've decided to pull it this way a little bit, so that'll be the smooth bit. This will be the steep bit. Just done that while I've been. That's just while I've been filming. But it's a simple technique, this, but it works really well, as you can see, to build up. Very quickly build up some elevation. And when you're working in the small scale like this, which is 1/72 scale or OO or HO, whatever you want to call it, each of these is the size of a person, so you can see you're immediately getting quite a high elevation. I'm not going to make this massive at this stage, because when I put it into the layout, it will probably slot into a ridge, and so it will have even more height when it's on the layout. This is not going. I'm determined not to do something that's too big this time. I normally go way too big on these TCU builds, and that annoys me a bit, because then I have to store them. So yeah, so that's all glued. Did all that on camera, didn't think I was going to do that. So I will now clear this up and come back very shortly, and we'll do the last few bits of the section, and then we can let that to dry. Don't move that there. It's grabby, but it does slide if you're not careful. There we are. So as you can see, if I wanted to make that a little bit smoother, I could easily just come in like that and carve that out. And I could carve that steeper. So that's all stuff I can do once it's dried and set, and I can make adjustments to to how steep that cliff is. But yeah, gonna carry on. I'll be back in a minute to do the final couple of sections. I'm wondering if this might not be a saddle, so I might do a little higher bit here and a higher bit here, and then a not so high bit here, and have her just climbing up out of that saddle. We shall see. I'll be back in a minute. Right, so the next step that I'm going to do, like I say, I'm going to build one more section on at full length, and then I'm going to put one more step here and one more step here, so there'll be like it'll step down in the middle and up again. So what you can see here, I've got one of the scraps. This has been cut, as you can see, on both sides. So just measure that, offer that up. Just come along with the Sharpie and indicate roughly where you want to cut it, and that's going to be roughly like that, so it's going to be right close there. And then on the other side, I'm going to do the same thing, just kind of work out roughly where that cut's going to be. And then if I just adjust the camera slightly, so you can see, literally as simple as this. This is why I like this material. It cuts and carves really easily, it doesn't bubble, and it's super quick to work with. And then we can offer that back up over here. So bring the camera back, and you can see that that is going to work perfectly. And then I've got another section here which I could do exactly the same thing. So you get the Sharpie, mark the end, and this is slightly different, so we're going to just shave that little bit off there, which I'll just do now. And the other thing that I need to do on this, if I turn the camera around, I've got a right messy desk today. Need to get it done. So what I need to do is I need to trim down that end. This is where the end of the diorama is going to go. So I can just use my 90-degree here to cut down, like so. And if we come back over here, now, superb camera work. You can see now that I'm able to see where the end of the underneath one is, and kind of go towards that. Make it a bit wider there. And I can trim it down as I go. So if I trim around the outside one, find it's not right, I can trim it down again and again. So that's how I've been doing it. Very, very basic, very simple, but effective. So I'm going to finish cutting and putting these layers on. And then I'll bring you back when it's all dried, show you what it looks like, and when we're about to start to do the modelling compound. I've left this for a couple of days, mainly because I got busy. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start to smooth the edges off, just get those contours right. That's not going to involve cutting it completely, probably about halfway for each, halfway down each of these, just to make it a little bit smoother, and then we'll come along with the modelling compound. But there may be some other techniques I use on this as well for this cliff side, which I'm just considering at the moment now. So just going to come along with my sharp blade and just smooth off some of these transitions, just like that. You can use a hot wire cutter for this if you want to, but I thought I'd just show that you don't need to at all. You can just use a sharp knife to achieve everything that I'm doing on this. So yeah, just going to be kind of smoothing down these edges, making them a bit less abrupt, and of course making a right mess as well, which I'll then need to tidy up. And like I say, I'm not looking to completely make it smooth, because I'm going to fill in the gaps, as I said before, with modelling compound. I just want to kind of take some of these edges off a little bit. It's a little bit difficult getting in at the angle. And if you decide not to do this step, if you're building along, then you're not going to miss much. You don't need to at all. So yeah, let's just keep doing this. It's a really sharp way, fast way to blunt your blade, by the way, this. So don't be surprised if your blade is blunt when you've been doing this sort of thing. There you are, so that was the effect I was going for. As I said, I don't want to trim everything. I might take a little bit more here, actually, having turned it around a bit. A little bit more off here, but I don't want to trim everything. Just want to make it a little bit smoother, make it easier for me for my modelling compound. So I'll tidy it up, get all the little bits and pieces put away. They will have to be bin, they're small. And then we'll get to mixing some modelling compound and we'll get to smoothing it up. But I think there'll be a step in between, so we'll find out what that is when I come back. So the next step before I do any modelling compound is to go into this box in which I have lots and lots of very dry bark, which makes absolutely superb cliffs. You don't need to buy those expensive Woodland Scenics cliff moulds, which only make a certain number of kind of like looks of cliff. What you can do is you can pick up some old wood bark, dry it for a while. Some of this is very old now. And then if you want to, you can bake it in the oven to really dry it and kill any bugs. And then what you end up with is fantastic looking, once it's painted, really nice cliffs. So because this is at such small scale, this is going model railway, I'm going to be breaking these up into smaller sections. If you're doing 28mm, then you can literally flatten that out, stick that onto something, and you've got a ready-made cliff as soon as you've painted it. It's magical how good this technique works. So we'll just get a few sections, and then what we'll do is we'll come along with some glue. I'll use my grabby glue for this, and we'll see what it looks like and see what we can build up, just to make it a little bit more interesting. And then what you do is you fill in around the edges with your modelling compound or whatever you're using. So yeah, just gonna keep picking at this, and I'll bring you back when I get to the next step, which is going to be sticking it in place. And so I've got enough for now, and you can see that I've offered one up, a larger piece, because it actually worked really well. I offered one up there, and what I can do is I can put another one here. Now, as I've said a couple of times, I'm not looking to particularly finish this, so having it hanging over and not coming to the bottom is fine, because eventually I will be cutting into this and I'll be blending this in to the rest of the scenery, so that will actually fit nicely and thematically. So it could be that I put those 3 in there, and maybe this nice long one can come along the bottom there, and that will make that into a really precipitous, is that the word? It's a good word if it isn't. Precipitous side to this build. So we're going to use the grabby glue, so put a bead of grabby glue on, and the grabby glue is just to hold it in place, after which we will then do our modelling compound. So don't worry too much about making it pretty, because we're going to be coming in with more material to fill this in and make it look good. As long as it holds it in place, that is what matters. And if it goes slightly over, that's fine, because we'll be building this up with a little bit of modelling compound as well anyway. So I'm going to do this side, and I'm also going to do some on the other side, but less, because the other side is going to be slightly shallower. And this is headcanon, not at all correct, but you can almost think of it as being like striding edge or sharp edge on Helvellyn and Blencathra in the Lake District, because I've climbed both those with my dad. I have strong memories of them, and they are awesome. Right, that's standing out a little bit too far. I would like to bend that round, so what I might do is grab myself a clamp, or 2 actually, because I'm probably going to need to clamp both ends, but let's clamp this end first, and then another clamp at this end, and then when that's set, hopefully the grabby glue will be enough to hold it. If it's not, then it's not. We'll find out together. So let's see whether this is successful. There we are. So hopefully when that's set, that grabby glue will hold it enough so that bend can be kept in, because I really do want that bend. And then what we're going to do is just take that loose bit off. I'm then going to glue this across here, and that's going to be enough, I think. And then we'll look at the other side. So yeah, top tip, tree bark. It is, I swear, absolutely hands down the best material for making these kind of cliffs at any scale, and that was the point I wanted to make. So I'm going to stick that one in under there again. I'm going to need to clamp that as well, so we'll get 2 more clamps, and I'll clamp that once I've done this side. So I'm going to need to clamp this side again, clamp the back side. I want that to be bend also, so we'll stick that in there. And I'm not sure if I'm going to use these. Maybe I'll put one. Not sure about that. Maybe in under there. Yeah, in under there. That'll do. And that will do for all of the cliff. So I'll put the final bit of bits back in the box, and then we'll come in here and we're going to clamp this other side because I want it to bend round. Well, that was a little bit more involved than I expected. However, that looks like that's going to work. So I'm going to let that to set. I'm not going to touch it now. I'll bring you back probably tomorrow now. I'll leave that overnight to go off, and then we'll do the modelling compound on it, and maybe add some more bigger rocks and what have you to it as well, some like to give it a little bit more texture. But for now, that is where I wanted to get to. So there we are. Tree bark, it's your friend. Right, so I've left this overnight, and I think that my very basic, managed to stick some to the actual clamp there. I think my very basic clamping has worked sufficiently. So if you have a look at that, you can see that they're bent in nicely and that's looking okay. So what I'm going to do now is just shake all that dirt off, just like that, put it back into the tray. And what we're going to do now is work with Luke's modelling compound, which I haven't used for a little while, but I do use a lot. I haven't used it on the channel for a fair while, so I will show a little bit of how I mix it up, and then most of this I will do off camera because it is a little bit repetitive. So the way that I work it is I just get some into a little tray like that. You don't need very much. You want to mix it up in small batches, otherwise it will end up going off and that will really annoy you. And then just put a little bit of water in. Now the key here is you can add more water if you don't put enough in, but if you put too much water in, you've got to add more modelling compound, and that means that your batch gets bigger. So just mix it up until you think you might need to add a little bit more water, and add a small amount, not a lot at a time, just a little bit and a little bit. And that will get you to your correct texture. So we will keep mixing that until we're at the correct texture. Now on this one I don't actually want it to be too soggy. I want it to be quite stiff because I've got a small batch and I want to fill in some gaps. If you are looking to save material, you could pack something else, maybe some rolled up toilet roll or something like that into those gaps, just to fill them up, so you're not having to use this modelling compound. But this is a small enough build that I'm not going to bother doing that. So that's about the consistency I'm looking for. And what we do then is come along and push it in where you want it and smooth it out. And it's a good idea to keep wetting your finger while you're working so that it doesn't stick to your fingers too much. And what we're doing here is we're looking to model the side of the hill that is around the cliffs. So there will probably be like rocks and what have you that will stick onto this, but this is maybe scree or whatever you want to call it that. So we're looking to fill in behind the cliffs, meld them together, fill in any gaps that you've got around the wood, and that's what we're trying to do. So like I say, I'll finish this mix up, mix a little bit more because I'll almost certainly need more of this than I've got, and then when it's all done we'll leave it to go off. If you mix this well, it goes off quite quickly. If you mix it very wet, it can sometimes take a bit of time, but it's a nice quick technique. As you can see, it doesn't take very long, but you do need to keep your hands clean, and I normally just use the water that I use for mixing and put my fingers in them every now and then just to make sure I've not got material sticking to them, which is going to make it harder to work with. Another thing that I'm going to have to do on this, which I'll do on camera to show you, is lift it up. So just wedging that underneath it. If I lift the camera up slightly, that gives me a little bit better access to get to these little kind of undercut bits. It means I'm not breaking my back trying to get access. So yeah, it's actually a generic tip for all hobbying. The thing that you need to remember is you can move things around. They don't have to stay static. You can put them at different angles or what have you, and that works very well. So I'll stop muttering now, just going to keep on with this, and I'll bring you back when this is all finished and all dried, because that's going to be the next step. So yeah, just building up these layers and filling the holes. Well, this is dried now. Didn't take very long. It's dried enough to work on anyway. So what I'm going to do is I have over here my number 2 sifted sand,
which is the not finest, but the next one up. And I'm going to glue it down over basically this side. You know what, I'm going to move that off and lift this up a little bit. I'm going to glue it down on this side of the cliff face. This is the steep side, so I want this to look a little bit like scree or slippy stones. So we're just going to whack, and this is going to make a bit of a mess, but it's okay. I'll sweep up afterwards. So we're going to whack some watered down PVA on here, and I'm using this spoon, scatter some stones on it like this. And this can take a couple of applications potentially, but what I'm going to end up with is a nice texture, a nice stony, look like slipping rock falls, that sort of thing, that will paint up really nicely and give the impression of what I'm looking for. So it's a really quick process to do this. So you see I've just added that, bring my bucket over, and I can just tip it up, and all that has stuck. So what I'll do is I'll keep working on this. I might put some slightly larger stones in, I might put some slightly smaller stones in, but I'm just going to work on this side for now. Then I will have a look and maybe do some patches on the other side, but not as much, and then we'll come along and paint it. So once I've got all of this glued in, once this is dried the first stage as well, I'll come along and I will put another coat of my watered down PVA over the top of everything just to seal it down. Once I've got to the stage of painting, I will then come back. Okay, I changed my mind a little bit. I've actually come along with some of this larger stuff that is the result of my sifting out for the more gravelly material that I use, more sandy material that I use for my grout mix, and I'm putting alcohol on, 99% alcohol there, and then I have a dropper, and what I can do is I can dropper my PVA on, and that sinks in because the alcohol breaks up the surface tension, and that will make it solid. So this is going to be multiple applications. I'm going to leave it now fully to go off and dry before I do anything else. You can see that there's quite a few places that probably needs more of this texture added, but that will dry absolutely solid. It might take a day or so to dry, but that will dry absolutely solid, and I can then come along and do more of these areas here. This is the mix that I'm using. Let me just get a little what's it. So it literally is the result of me sifting out some with some dirt that I picked up off of outside, and it makes a really good varied size mix. So I'm going to leave that alone. I will let you know how many applications. I might turn the camera back on a bit and show some more applications, but that's the idea. This is going to be a really rocky face. I will be able to put some grass and what have you and break it up a bit and do things with colours, but yeah, I want this to be the scree side of the ridge. I'm pretty happy with how I've got the stones on this for the screed. So what I'm going to do, scree even, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come along to the black house paint and slap that over it all. And that will give me a good base to start from and bring all the colours that I want to bring out of it. Now I'll probably, funnily enough, be returning it relatively close to the colours it's got now, but you do need to paint. If you don't paint stones, they keep looking like stones. So yeah, even if you like the colour of your stones, paint them back to that colour, because you'll be able to get a better result and make it look more realistic. So I'll get this done, and then when this is dried I'll bring you back. Some of them might fall off, that's okay. When this is dried I'll bring you back and we'll start working on the individual colours. Shouldn't take too long to paint this. And now comes the moment of truth. This is where we can make or break this entire project. So you can see that the black paint has worked well. What I've got here is a whole bunch of different colours, oranges and reds and beiges and what have you. And I'm going to dry brush and stipple them on all over the rocks. I'm going to try and leave, if I can, the dirt. I'm just going to do the rocks in this stage. Though I might do the dirt with a brown, with a ready brown, which I've got over here. So yeah, so I'm going to get a load of colours done on this, and I'll probably put the camera on and just put some music on and run it while I'm doing it, because I'm not entirely sure how it's going to work, so I'm not going to want to talk, I want to concentrate. But that's the plan, and once I've done that, then I will come across and I will bring it all together with the greys to do a grey dry brush over the whole thing, which will then dull down and deaden down the bright colours I put on, and should give it a really nice, interesting look, which is what you get in real life. Rock isn't just grey, it's all sorts of colours, blues and yellows. I'll probably pull some more colours other than this in. So yeah, so I'll get the camera running and record some of this, put some music on, and you can enjoy and watch this develop. I really do love the bright colours I've got on this right now, but it's time to tone them back. So what I've got is a little bowl of water and my dark grey paint, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a dark grey wash, and I'm going to basically apply that all the way over all of it, just to tie it all together. I was going to do a dry brush, as I said in the previous clip, I think, but on reflection I think a dark grey wash is actually going to work a little bit better. So mix that up, make a right mess probably and hopefully this is going to work, because this is not a technique I've actually ever used before on terrain. So we shall see. That might be a little too runny. My attitude is, if this goes wrong, I can very easily apply the colours again and paint it again. I don't need to panic too much about destroying it. That's my attitude. So yeah, we're just going to paint this over the lot. And then I can also always come back with some more, like I say, some more dry brushing if I think I need to. Right, so I'll do this, let it dry, and then we'll see what it looks like. It's nice doing a new technique. I'll probably mop up any puddles with a towel. Initially I'm quite pleased with how that looks. It's really dulled it down, but also lightened it as well. So it's taken some of the shock out of a few of the colours and brought the black up. So I'm not going to throw my grey away. I'm going to pop that to one side, let that dry and see what it looks like. So I'll bring you back when it's dried again. Right, so this has worked perfectly with that grey wash. I had to do a couple of little bits of touching up. There was a big blue blob on one of these stones here So I literally just took my finger, dipped it into the wash and dabbed it on a couple of times. But other than that, it literally has just been the one application, and that's worked perfectly. So that's really nice to know how well that works, and I'll remember and use that technique again, because yeah, it's really drawn it together. I'm not pretending that I made the technique up. I've just not done it before myself. So what I've got now, what I'm going to do now is just a little bit of green, not very much, just maybe a little bit of green. There's not very much grass on these sorts of ridges. So so yeah, so just a little bit of green and a little bit of like yellow and purple. So that would be like more likely to have that kind of thing up there, which is like thistles and stuff like that. So I'm just going to dab it in, a little bit of glue, and drop that on just to add a bit of texture, and then we're going to put the miniature on. So yeah, this won't take long because I'm really not going to do very much. Just want a tiny touch of colour and different textures, because you do get some kind of greenery and what have you up here sometimes. It's just not very much. So yeah, get that finished, and then when that's dried and sealed on, I'll bring you back and we'll stick the miniature that represents my father, and yeah, then we're done. Which is good. We're coming up to the anniversary of his passing, so having this done for then is quite important to me for obvious reasons. Oh, don't go down. Don't dribble down too much. There we are. Right, so I'll finish this off and then bring you back for the final step, as I say, which is going to be sticking the miniature in place. Right, so I've done that in, and also sealed it on with another layer, and I've decided I just want to get this done. So here he is. He's going to be walking along there. So just a dab of super glue on the bottom of his feet, like so, and he's going to be just approaching this rise. So I'm going to hold it on. There we are. That's all it needs, and that is that. There we are. Quite emotional now, actually. I've been planning this for a fair while. I'm really pleased to see it. So there we are. We'll let that to dry, and that's that piece finished. Fantastic. Well, there we are. I think it turned out great, and I'm really pleased that I was able to get it finished and ready. I'm going to enter it today as well as I publish this video, so I'm going to put the pictures onto the TCU Discord, and I'm really pleased I managed to get this done in time to celebrate and commemorate my father, who was a great man, and I miss very, very much. Now, unusually, there's going to be a little bit more at the end after this outro. While I was working away on this, during one of the speeded up sections, Rosie came in to see me, and it put such a smile on my face just now while I was editing it that I'm going to grab it and put it at the end of the video so you can listen to her, because family is very important, most important indeed. Family and health, two things that matter the most, more than anything in the world. And yeah, as part of this video I wanted to capture that moment and share it, so yeah, hopefully you'll enjoy that as well. But thank you ever so much for watching. If you made it this far and you do get to enjoy that bonus at the end, then that's really cool. I'll wrap up as I always do. To everyone, please do stay healthy, stay safe, and stay well. Yes, love?
For you to fix.
Okay, pop it here and I'll fix it for you now.
It didn't really work.
Okay, it's fine, I'll fix it now.
When Mummy got on the chair, it broke.
Oh dear, okay, well tell Mummy I'll be down in a minute.
Okay, can you fix
I will fix it right now, love, right as soon as I've done this. Shut my door.
What?
Shut my door.
Okay. We were just about to watch.
Okay. I'll be down in a bit.